Hey, on my Travel Podcast, I'm lucky to have Jules today of the Jules and Christine duo. How are you today, Jules?
I'm great, thanks, Pete. Great to connect with you and looking forward to the chat.
Yeah, it's been great I always tell people I love my podcast, but the negative is the people I'm trying to interview are always traveling.
Yeah, definitely. It makes it difficult with the time zones, especially. We find ourselves, it's great when we're in the US, but then when we're on the other side of the world in Bali, getting up at 2 a.m. to talk to people, which makes it hard.
Yeah, I did that. I had that with I forget where he was at. I think he was in Bali, then he was going to Nepal. We're trying to figure out what day and what time and everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then the person's traveling as well, so you finally figure out a time in Bali, and then suddenly they're in Rome. And it's like, oh, sorry, my time zone changed again.
Exactly. So, what exactly? I consider you guys travel bloggers, but how do you just define or describe what you guys do?
Yeah, so I guess that in itself has evolved over the years. Essentially, we started as travel bloggers, and I guess that's where we really are at sort of the root of our business. But over the years, it's evolved into more of travel media. The term influencer wasn't around back when we started 6 years ago, and it's a lot more prevalent now. We've never really felt super comfortable with that term. Content creators, marketing, sort of your general travel media, online promotion and content creation. But yeah, travel bloggers at heart, definitely.
So what I guess I'm trying to figure out, for a job, what do you do to create income, I guess?
So as travel bloggers, we run a travel website called don'tforgettomove.com, and this started about 6 years ago as a hobby. But with an idea of that, it is possible to make money online, and it wasn't as well documented with courses and things like that as it is now. Yeah. But we did know that it was possible to make money through partnerships, through affiliate marketing, through online sales, through different things like that. Yep. So, and the social media game was also very different back then. Instagram and YouTube weren't as big as they were now. You didn't have Snapchat, you didn't have all these other platforms. But back in the day, when you were travel blogging, you were creating content with the idea of people visiting your site. There was ad revenue opportunities. There was also affiliate marketing opportunities through commissions and through links. And then also working with brands or destinations. And so that's how it started for us, creating that. And then over the years, as we learned more about the industry and more about how to monetize it, it's just steadily grown to what's now our full-time job, both my partner and I, Christine. It's allowed us to travel all around the world for work and for leisure. So it's been good.
I mean, that's awesome. I try to think back to when I was in my 20s. If you would have told me, hey, in 30 years, people are going to be able to get paid for traveling around the world without having, the connections. I mean, I guess you could have done of your Jacques Cousteau, and then, to me, that was the travel. And it's just like amazing to me that people are doing it. And so it's awesome. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, well, I guess traditionally it started with journalism and things like that. So people traveling around covering different locations, and then you have some of the old school, the original people like Rick Stein and people like that, or Rick Steves. I think there's two of them.
Rick Steves.
Yeah, I think Rick Stein's the cooking guy. I always get them mixed up. But you have people like that who started it, and then people in the travel industry traveling for journalism, and then I guess with the proliferation of the internet and the opportunities there, creating your own website and doing it yourself became a thing. Travel blogging probably has its roots back in maybe 2010, 2008, sort of around that time. Yeah. We like to think of ourselves as second generation bloggers. We missed the early adopters, all those people who got in right at the start, but we got in at a pretty good time before it became very saturated, especially with Instagram and social media. Yeah, it's a pretty good opportunity. It's given us a lot of crazy stories around the world. It's given us a lot of opportunity to travel all around the world over the last 5-6 years.
But it is work. I mean, as I found out, if I would have, when I listened to podcasts before I created my own, I was like, oh, they just sat down, they just record it, boom, goes out, done. But creating content is work.
Oh, absolutely. And I guess for us being in travel content, I mean, we always, from our friends and from our family, and people are like, oh, that's a tough job, ha ha. We get the ribs from that. And it does, I'm not going to sit here and lie, it does have its benefits. Like there are some times where we find ourselves working, going on a paid work trip to the Maldives for 10 days, having to create content. That's when you sort of kick back and go, yeah, okay, this is a pretty good job.
Yeah, it doesn't suck.
it doesn't suck. But in the same sense, our job is to portray the best of the best. So, we're not going to show people the times where we sat down for a week in our sweats and didn't leave the house because we were hunched over our computers working on content.
Yeah, exactly.
So there is an ebb and flow to it. We do have to show, our goal is to show the best content that we can to make that pretty, but there's a creative process behind, creating that content, behind promoting it that you don't see, which is all the back end and the hard work. Yeah. And as you know from the podcast, even that takes a lot of work. We just, ourselves having just started a podcast in the last month, having a lot of fun with it, but also realizing it's just another thing that we've got to be creative with and got to keep promoting. And
because I started the podcast and all of a sudden I'm like, and then people are like, oh, what's your website? And I'm like, oh, I don't have a website. Oh, you need to have a website. I'm like, oh my God. So guess what? I had to learn how to make a website.
Yeah. What's your social media? Oh, okay. Got to work out how to do social media marketing. Got to work out this. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
Like, I thought you were just going to talk to people. And I'm like, no, I am, but it's been fun. I mean, I love learning new stuff, and I think the phone as a tool is the future.
Yeah,
I mean the internet's not going anywhere.
No, absolutely not.
What are the biggest struggles you find when you're traveling? You've been everywhere. I mean, like I was going to say, oh, where have you been? It's like the Maldives, the Bali, Indonesia, all throughout the States. Where else have you? I mean, you've been Europe. You've been everywhere, right?
Yeah, well, done all of Central America and Mexico, most of South America, quite a lot of Europe, like East and West, a lot of Southeast Asia, Australia. Haven't done. Christine's been to Morocco. That's the only sort of, we've been planning a big Africa trip.
Okay.
It just hasn't been fitting into but we've always held back on Africa because there's just so many amazing places to see, and it's such a big continent that we want to get to as many countries as we can and turn it into a big trip. So we've been holding back on that. Maybe next year. But other than that, we've been every other spot around the world. It's been good.
What have been the difficulties with that? I mean, obviously now I think, booking flights and booking hotels or just having a phone in general is just a huge advantage. But what are the difficulties?
For travel personally, or for organizing travel, or for? Well, I think for us, it's finding the balance between like work travel and personal travel, and it's like finding time to enjoy the places, not just see them like as content creation opportunities or things like that. That's probably like a personal challenge.
Yeah.
And then other than that, probably just thinking about like, I don't know, our workflow and also like our timing and sort of giving ourselves some proper rest, because we tend to burn ourselves out a little bit because we're always on the go.
And again, that's the stuff I don't think people would understand that don't travel. I mean, like if I'm gone for 2 weeks in Las Vegas, everyone's like, oh my God, you're so lucky. And I'm like, hold on, I'm working 17 straight days, 10, 12-hour days, no days off, because I worked there for the rodeo, and it's like, everyone's like, oh, you're so lucky. I'm like, do you really want to stay in a hotel for 17 days in Vegas?
Yeah, I think like you would understand, especially like when you're away from home for a long time as well, it's different. You don't have your home comforts and your schedule changes every day and exhausting, and you come back at the end of the day and after a day of work, and then you want to relax and you've got to do other work, and the days just blend into each other. We've had a bit of time off in the last couple of months as we've been more stationary based around the Bay Area in California, but we just went on a trip last week and we almost forgot how exhausting it was spending the day walking around doing content creation and sort of organizing things like that, and then at night coming back and having to edit photos, edit video, write notes, do this, do that, and just falling asleep on the laptop at 11 o'clock at night.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
I know, because that's the balance. I think the other thing I've found is a lot of people do multiple things. You know, instead of saying, I'm going to go to Africa next year, I mean, you've got your website, you've got different, you know, like you said, affiliates, you've got different income streams you have to always be kind of looking out for. It's work. I mean, it's a job.
Yeah, I think we, and Christine would definitely agree with me, we definitely suffer from the shiny object syndrome in the sense that we're always, you know, looking for the thing. I wouldn't say that necessarily our follow through isn't there, because we have started a lot of these things and then eventually they sort of fizzle out, which is part of being an entrepreneur, you know,
sure.
taking the chances to go after something, but then also realizing when it doesn't work out, and also more so than that, but also having the ability to acknowledge that it's failed and to let it go. Because I think that a lot of people in the online space, in the entrepreneur space, they feel they've put so much time and effort into something and they can't let it go. And sometimes that's actually what's holding them back. So yeah, we do pick up a lot of tasks, and that is hard for us to juggle at times. And, you know, we just started the podcast, but that's been going great. It's called So Bon Voyage. I'll give it a little plug.
Cool.
It's been really fun. We've had some really good fun with that, some good responses in the last 4 weeks since we launched. And I've got an e-commerce store coming up, opening in the next 2 weeks, which is going to be good as well. Pay a little homage to my native Australians in the US.
There you go.
With that, and then just other things like that. But so it's hard to balance.
I guess the things I think about, because I travel so much, I'm always thinking about the actual logistics behind it. So when you're in the Maldives, are you on a satellite Wi-Fi, or, I mean, how are you getting connection? Have you ever been to where you didn't have internet connection and you just had to wait till you did and then upload everything?
Yeah, it's becoming less frequent, which is a little bit sad. I remember traveling. So I guess I first started traveling in 2016 when I was 21. So it goes back a little bit now. And that was such a different era. My first trip was Thailand, which even still back then is a very well-trodden tourist area, but now it's even more so. And I still remember there was no smartphones. I didn't have access to Wi-Fi. I went to internet cafes to jump on my Hotmail and send my mum an email to tell her I was okay.
Yeah.
And then these days you can just cruise around. We need connectivity more than ever these days, especially for our work. So if we're going to be in a country for a long time, for instance, when we're in Bali in Indonesia, we just go on the first day we're there and get a local SIM, and then we're always connected.
I got you.
So the difference is so vast now. But there have been trips where we haven't. I was in Guyana last year, which was probably one of the most amazing trips that I've had in a long time. And we were out in the wilderness for 7 days without any connectivity. They did partner with a local satellite company to provide us with Wi-Fi, but it wasn't very successful. And I think it was more of just a token gesture. It didn't work. We all just decided on day one, it's all good. We're just going to spend the next 7 days creating content and having some fun. And it was actually really great to be on a trip like that, because it really took me back to the days before the phone. Such intensified connectivity and people sort of stuck to their phone. And I understand it's also a necessity now, and we rely on it heavily for our business and our travel, but it is also nice to get a bit of a detox from it.
See, I could not agree with you more. It's weird. I remember my wife I had to fly to Denver for work, and I was charging up my phone before I got the extra battery. So I was charging it up, and I wanted to make sure I maxed it out. And I got out, and she dropped me off, and I left the phone in the car.
Oh, no.
And so it was like, I mean, I don't know, it was the last time you took a trip without a phone, without I mean.
I don't know. I don't think we do.
You know what I mean? So all of a sudden I'm like, shit, what do I do? So I'm at I call, I find somebody inside the airport, and I'm like, hey, can I borrow your phone? I need to call my wife. She's already home. So I'm like, okay. I get to Denver. Well, I'm supposed to call the hotel for the shuttle. Well, that phone number is in my phone.
Oh, no.
So now I'm looking around Denver airport for a payphone.
So then you think, oh, let me Google it. Oh, wait, that's right. It's my phone.
I can't Google it. Exactly. So, yeah, I had to use a payphone, which I found, and, called Zero, called for the operator, and and remembered the name of the hotel, thankfully, and where it was located.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't even know how to do that.
It's crazy.
Get through to an operator. Yeah, I think it's even hard to find a payphone these days. I can't even think of it.
Everybody, I told that story to because it was for my company work, and they're like, "There's payphones at Denver Airport." I'm like, "Yeah." You walk by them every time you go there, but you don't look for them anymore.
Oh, it's like a prehistoric relic.
Well, hey, let's see, about 20 years ago, when we had pagers, we thought we were the bomb. Except for if you're an outside sales rep, you get a page that says "Call me." It's like, so now I got to stop, get off the freeway, go to a gas station or whatever, find a payphone, call, get your calling card number so it wouldn't charge you too much. Then you call and they go, "Oh, we figured it out. Don't worry about it."
Couldn't you page me to tell me that?
No, they couldn't. Oh, we forgot. It's like, then we had codes for how important it was.
Wow, that would have been crazy.
Yeah, and that was advanced technology, just having a pager. Because before you just have to wait till you got there and then call and see if anything happened while you were gone.
It must just make things so much easier. It must be so interesting having gone through those different stages to see how much easier it is now. Just get shot a quick message or an email with everything that you need to know. It can be reachable at any time. It must make things a lot easier.
Well, yeah, and I remember, just getting a fax machine was a holy shit moment in your life, because everything before you had to make copies of, and copies weren't cheap, so you'd have to go to a Kinko's, make copies, and then mail out your order forms. And then if they had a question, they would call you back, but it would be 4 or 5 days later. Now it's instantaneous. I mean, now I have customers that email my warehouse in Denver directly, and they just say, "Oh, it's just automatic." It's good and bad, because now I'm getting emails on weekends.
Well, that is interesting. I mean, that you make a really good point there, because it is with the increased connectivity and definitely the way it's made our life easier. It also means though that we can always be on, and I think that's what a lot of people struggle with in this current stage, this technological sort of business working areas, that you can always be on and it's hard to disconnect. And we've found, we can feel when that's building up too much, and then when we finally take a break, we're like, wow, we really needed to just step away from that for a while and go on a digital detox. It seems like, I remember when I first heard that term, it seemed like such a corny kind of idea, that the idea of taking a digital detox, but it's so true. We've taken a few over the last, this year, I guess our probably biggest one was we go to Burning Man, and we're at Burning Man this year, 10 days, not even a phone in my pocket, let alone being able to connect. And I tell you, that is a very refreshing feeling.
Well, it's interesting, even like Burning Man. I have a friend that went to some of the original ones.
Yeah, wow.
And he doesn't go anymore, because for him it's too commercialized. Because you know what I mean. So it's just weird. It's like, but the young people go and they're like, "Oh my God, this is great! This is so cool!" And you're just trading, bartering, and he's like, "No, it's commercialized." Blah, blah,
Yeah, well, that's a psychological sentiment as well. Like that, it was always better in your own era. That's the kind of ongoing joke with Burning Man as well. That people are everybody's got their era that they were more happy with, and that it's changed. And I'm sure even myself will look back in years to come and go, "Oh, it was better the first time we went." But
yeah, and because you're in a different place, you'll be in a different place in 10 years if you go back to Burning Man than where you're at now.
Absolutely. I mean, that's life in general. I mean, I can say the same thing as, from my first, Thailand's a place that I've been to with its close proximity to Australia, and also just being an amazing country. It's a place I've gone to a lot over the years, and every time you go back to a place and it's changed a little bit, you always have that feeling of nostalgia for what it was, the times that were. And that's just, I guess that's just a sort of natural human feeling. But even in the last few years, using Bali as our home base, and every time we go there and seeing the amount of development that happens even within a 12-month period, you always look back on the first times you were there when it was simpler and think, oh, it used to be better. But I guess that's life.
Yeah, and same way in California,
Yeah.
everyone's like, I mean, it's weird to think, California has more population than the country of Canada.
Yeah. It's got more population way more than Australia.
Australia, yeah. And so, 30 years ago, I remember, population was just a little over half of what it is now. And people complained about it being busy back then.
Yeah.
People still complained about traffic. They still complained about everything and this and that. The smog was horrifically bad back then. I mean, the EPA was just still getting going, and they weren't. I mean, the smog was a real thing. Like when I played football in high school, we would throw up from inhaling all the smog in the summertime.
Oof.
And now I can see the mountains. So
there's a lot more cars on the road now.
There's twice as many cars, and yet the air is cleaner because of the regulations that they put into the gas and the vapor intake back.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, the EPA just started in the 70s, and they were still getting going in the 80s, and now they're pretty much in full swing. And they can still do, but that's why I always tell people, I don't care who the president is, manufacturing is not coming back to the United States. The only way it's going to come back is if they get rid of the EPA.
Yeah, I just think that. Yeah,
or add the EPA to India, China, Bangladesh, Cambodia, Vietnam, because they don't have the EPA over there.
Yeah, well, I think also the thing is manufacturing costs as well. It's just too enticing for companies to get this stuff produced outside of the US. It's
labor. I mean,
yeah,
like the company I work for, we won't make stuff in Bangladesh so we'll make stuff in India and we'll make stuff in China, but we don't like the way they treat their employees in Bangladesh more so than the other countries because it's like a quarter an hour there.
Yeah, but that's good to hear. So with our travel blog, a lot of our focus is on adventure travel, but it's also a lot of our focus has been on sustainability and responsible tourism, and we actually, Christine and I both have a background in international development, so it's always good to hear of companies that are being responsible, at least for fair labor and.
Well, and you try. And I'm not at that level, but obviously I've known my bosses for a decade now. Some of them I've known longer, but it's. You want to make as much money as you can for the employees that work for you day in, day out. And everyone at the office is saying, hey, I need a raise. So you either have to increase sales or you have to increase your profit and lower your costs. The only way to do that would be to go to like Bangladesh. And we're like, they really take care of you.
Yeah, I guess it's all just a balance between trying to hopefully be as ethical as you can, but also trying to find the balance that works for you. Yeah, I guess a lot of companies come up against that challenge.
Yeah, I mean, if we could build stuff here, but it gets so crazy. If you want to make a pair of boots in Mexico, right, but you do everything except for attach the sole of the boot to the actual boot, and you keep those two parts separate, have everything made in Mexico, ship it here into the States. So on the sole, you can now say it's been made in the United States.
Oh, really?
So every component there was actually made in Mexico, but because you didn't make, if it doesn't have the sole, it's not a boot. So it wasn't made. So once you've sewn just the sole onto the bottom of everything else, the shaft and the vamp, you could technically say it's made in the U.S.
Oh, that's interesting. That's like Apple products designed in California, made in China.
Well, it's the same way. My boss asked me, he said, hey, do you think we'd sell more shirts if we could say it was made in the U.S.? I said, yeah. I go, but how are you going to do that? He goes, the stitch from your hip all the way up to your armpit, if they don't stitch that together over in China, and they could make everything else, the collar, the cuffs, the buttons, the plackets, everything else, just those two stitches on the sides of your shirt. They ship it over to the States. We take it to a shop. They zip it up. Shirt made in the U.S.
Wow, that's interesting.
But then it's not really, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're just cheating your customers, and if you get found out, then you're double bad because now you're not making it in the U.S. and you trying to
deceive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are companies that do that.
Yeah, I bet there are.
Yeah. So that's that's one thing I really liked about your website, your videos, is about sustainability and being eco-friendly, and it's a good twist on it. Not just saying, hey, come visit, Medellin, Colombia, or Bells Beach or Spain or wherever.
That's been a focus on ours. So Christine and I, our story goes back to Peru, 2012, where we actually met working for a nonprofit in disaster relief. And Christine has a background working in nonprofits in San Francisco. I used to be a high school teacher, and we've both been involved in giving back projects over the years. And so when we created our blog, we wanted to make sure we were always traveling with that intent in mind of being able to give back where we can, or to help out, or at least to be more conscious of our own footprint when we visited these countries. And so when we started the blog, that's what we wanted to make sure we focused on is sustainability and making sure that we could provide a resource to travelers that help them educate them about sustainability and how to have ethical interactions with animals while you're traveling. So, even simple things like explaining to white people why you shouldn't ride elephants and why you shouldn't go to a tiger petting zoo and things like that. And certain parts of the world are more notorious than others for those sorts of activities. But just trying to basically educate people about that, not just do it in a cynical way, but offer alternatives and things that people can do to get authentic experiences that don't impact the local environment or the local animals or the local people.
And you're right. I mean, there are still, I guess you can still ride elephants here in the U.S. in some areas, in some zoos and all that. At least I think so.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'd imagine the U.S. would be pretty tight on that. I feel like stuff would get shut down pretty. But I mean, there are still examples of. I mean, I don't want to get into it too much. It's a big conversation, but and there's a lot of negative conversations about even visiting SeaWorld and the way that marine life is treated, and while the US does have better standards compared to some other places, maybe within the global south or the developing world, I guess any interaction with not just an elephant but in an animal outside of its natural habitat is always going to be questionable.
Obviously the big movie that came out was Blackfish.
Yes.
And my wife and I watched that movie, and she's like, "It's not going to make a difference. I mean, those companies are so big." But yet, I go, "Look, that one film doesn't need to make all the difference in the world. It needs to start a chain of differences." Absolutely. And look, it did. And I think it really has changed people's perceptions of what happens there, and with the killer whales and the orcas and.
Yeah, well, as you said, it gets the conversation started. It puts it into people's mind, and it gives them a reference point to start off with. Because for a lot of people, it's not, and that's what we really try and focus on with our blog as well. It's not about shaming people or about making them feel bad about the choices they made, but rather so educating them. Because a lot of people don't understand the complexities of what it means for an elephant if it's domesticated essentially, and it can be ridden. The process that has to occur for that to happen is terribly brutal for the elephant, and also like the health effects of everybody thinks, oh, an elephant, it's a big strong creature, but there's actually a lot of science behind the fact that their backs aren't very supportive of that weight for heavy chairs and people, and also just the fact that you've got an elephant working for tourist enjoyment that's chained up most of the day. So it's about educating, but it's also about trying to offer people some alternatives, let them understand the reason behind it, because I think that's the most effective way to help get through to people, is to provide them with some answers and some solutions rather than making them feel like they need to defend their actions.
Yeah, and see, I feel the same way like with food. Like I a couple of years ago, I started watching more documentaries about food production. And then obviously the consumption of different foods, but I don't I don't try and force it down other people's throat. If they ask me why I'm eating what I'm eating or how I'm doing it, I'll tell them.
Yeah.
But I don't go, oh, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the reason that people have a problem with those extremist views in any sense, is that they feel like their own personal views are being challenged and threatened. So it's a natural human instinct to get defensive of what you value. And I think that if we were more open to dialogue, it would help people be a lot more understanding of people's differences and their different opinions. But sometimes people are so passionate about their views that they feel like they need to push them down someone's throat, and it really just has an adverse effect.
I always tell, obviously in the States, and I don't know how much time you spent in the States versus overseas, but our political system is completely polarizing right now. And I always tell people, it's like, if you're a Catholic and one person's a Muslim, that Muslim's not going to convert that Catholic by forcing them to become, you know what I mean, by becoming Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's like, I just think our parties are trying to force their views down their throats of the other party, and if that wouldn't work against you, why would it work for you?
Yeah, I mean I think that's a problem with a lot of opinions at the moment.
Yeah,
people I think polarizing is a great way to sort of put the. I mean, I spent quite a bit of time in the US over the last few years. My partner's from the US, and so I think that's polarizing is a great way to describe the current climate without getting too much into politics and things like that. But I feel like that's a lot of the conversations are strongly focused on one side or the other, and it's just butting heads, really.
I'm curious, you know, since you've traveled so much overseas, what do you see as the views on the United States and what's going on here?
I think that it's a little, I guess, like being in California based, there is a bit of a bubble here, especially in San Francisco. Yeah. It's a very liberal place, and that's complementary to my own personal values as well.
Sure.
So in that sense, it's a little hard for me to comment because I'm not as familiar with the other side, or at least experiencing it firsthand. A lot of my friends, my partner, family, all have the same views. So I guess in that sense, it doesn't really come across as much of a conflict. It's also, I mean, although I've made it my part-time home for the last few years, it's also not my country either.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just curious. Like, if you go to Mexico, or you go to some of the other countries you've been to in the last couple of years, if they even say anything, or is it just?
Oh, you're talking about in regards to the US?
Yeah.
Not so much. It was we had a few interesting experiences back in 2016 when we were in the UK at the time of the US election, which was interesting. There too. Yeah. But we were actually in London at the time of the election, so there was a bit of a buzz around that. Obviously, US politics is being a world superpower. A lot of people have an interest, or at least a vested interest in what's happening in the US. And I know certainly in Australia, being an ally of the US and being a trade partner and all of that, it's something that has an impact on our country economically and politically, and things like that. So there is, I guess, always an interest in what's happening in the US politics and how it's going to affect your own country. So that was interesting being there for the election in the UK, was when people were very interested in getting Christine's opinion on the recent election results. So they were very interested in knowing what she thought about the new president. So and everybody had some interesting things to say. So
Well, no, I mean, you know, it hurt my business in California, because most of my, I'd say 60% of my stores are Latino based. And so when Trump became president, the word in the Latin world was that Trump was going to deport everybody.
Yeah.
So everybody literally stopped spending money waiting for their deportation orders, even though they had green cards or visas. They got scared. And I always tell people, I go, look, if you watch the Halloween movie or Friday the 13th, you know it's fake. No one died in that movie. No one got stabbed. No one bled, but you still got scared.
Yeah.
So, and I go, it's the same way. I go, he never said he was going to deport everybody, but yet everyone got scared. So when they got scared, they stopped sending money.
Yeah.
And they were actually sending it back home or saving it up. So my sales in 2016 went down drastically, or at 2017 really.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and you would think it would go up in the Western clothing industry because we tend to be very conservative based people, but not in California. Yeah, but it was people are like, why are your sales down? I'm like, hey, why'd you vote for Trump?
Yeah, well, we'll see how it goes over the next year then, 2020.
I honestly, I think he's going to get reelected.
If he's not impeached beforehand?
It won't matter. The Senate's not going to impeach him.
Yeah.
So just like Clinton was impeached by the House, but then it didn't go through the Senate, so he stayed in office. And
I'm not too familiar with the process.
Well, the House is going to impeach him because they're democratically controlled. They could have impeached him 2 years ago just because they don't like him. But when it goes into the Senate, which is Republican controlled, they won't go through. They won't get the votes, and therefore he won't be removed from office, just like Clinton wasn't. So that's the only thing I don't understand why everyone's so excited about the impeachment trials. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, it's not going to get through the Senate just like it didn't do for Clinton. So you're just wasting time, basically. But,
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I follow a little bit as much as I can, but yeah,
well,
I don't know.
Unfortunately for me, I drive a lot for my work because I'm well, for one, I'm based in California, so just saying that you drive a lot. And then, so I listen to a lot of news. I try and listen to conservative and liberal stations to see. That's the only way I can find something in between, because if you only listen to one, you're definitely not getting both sides of the story.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to get a bit of a neutral stance.
Well, yeah, because
I think in general, I think just in terms of, even outside of politics, but just in terms of any sort of issues, people are very biased towards their own personal opinions and trying to stand out in today's sort of news or politics, or even just when it comes to content. You know, people are trying to stand out in a different way, and so you've got to be outrageous.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. You know, the more outrageous people, it goes viral. And all of a sudden, you have a one video that gets 8 million views. But you got known for something that you don't necessarily want to be known for.
I think in the content creation space, the amount of people see these people who go viral and don't really understand how much of a small percentage that they are in the grand scheme of things. And you're looking at Instagram and, with 2 billion users and things like that. And, you're looking at a 0.0001% of people who can blow up overnight, unless you're Jennifer Aniston and you get 16 million Instagram followers in your first day or whatever, But the majority of people are really going to struggle to find that voice. And I don't know, it's a really interesting space, and I think it's going to be an interesting space to watch over the next couple of years, the way that social media plays a role in people's life. And there's already studies coming out about the impact that it's having on teens now and things like that are quite alarming. And so it's going to be an interesting space to watch and see how these companies evolve to try and, I don't know, focus on some of the issues that are coming out of it.
I kind of look at, let me think back. In the early 80s is when arcades were really popping. So you went to an arcade room to go play video games.
Yep.
And that's where I'd ask my dad for a quarter, and he'd, hey, can I get some money? He'd throw me a quarter. And I'd be like, really? He'd be like, go give it back. I'm like, oh, never mind. Yeah. I'll be happy with the quarter you gave me. But, so I remember the parents back then saying, oh, the kids are wasting their time, blah, 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 and then became the Sega and the Genesis computer games. And then they were saying, oh, kids are wasting their time with that. But now it's an entire industry. Now their esports people are the esports, the video game people are now on ESPN.
Oh, it's crazy. You've got kids who are 16 making $3 million and $1 million sponsorship deals with, like professional athletes. It's been an interesting transition over the last couple of years. It's pretty crazy to see how much it's blown up. I don't really follow video games that often, but
see, I don't either now. But I was watching ESPN. I was going through one of the channels. I'm like, hold on, they're playing video games. What's going on? And it was China against, I think, Brazil or something. And they got the headphones on and they're sitting in the chairs and they're shooting everybody and all the violence. And I'm like, God, 30 years ago, you would have been told you're wasting your life, and now they're millionaires.
Yeah, well, like video games is just another form of content and entertainment. I mean, that's the thing. Like when you're creating something, everything is content in a sense.
Yeah,
and that provides value to somebody. So if you're a comedian, you're providing content. You're comedic content. If you're sports, you're providing entertainment. So like everything comes back to that idea of like if it's somebody else's enjoyment, they're consuming a content on some form of level. So now it's video games. That's the thing.
Well, even I'll give you an example. My next door neighbor who just moved out, he was 19, never had a job, and he was a social media influencer. He was a makeup tutorial guy. And so his boyfriend would record it. And, just like, I think if I watch your video on, I got them pulled up here. If I watch your, what was it, Lake Tahoe road trip in Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
That was, 4 or 5 days, you said?
Yeah.
Then it's 7 minutes of film.
Yeah.
Edited down. So these 1 minute videos that my neighbor was making for makeup tutorials, it was a 1 minute video. It took him 9 to 12 hours to record it and then edit and all that. But he would get paid $2,000 for that 1 minute video by the makeup companies.
Yeah, I mean it's if you're in a direct partnership with the brand that you're promoting, or whether you're creating revenue off your YouTube views or through affiliate links inside the bite, like the description of the video, like there's a ton of options to do it. It's just it's a different form of marketing.
So here's a kid with 350,000 followers on Instagram, YouTube page. He got his own product named in Sephora, one of the big retail companies. He's 19, 20 years old. Never had a job. Not even looking for a job.
Well, that is his job.
Yeah. But
I mean, that's the difference, like that in the past, 5 years ago, before people understood the process, it wouldn't have been considered a job. But I mean, that is his job. It's kind of no different than being, he's just changed the game, and the current like evolution has just changed the way we promote things. So as opposed to him in the past being perhaps a print model for a magazine, for a makeup company or something like that, or being a part of a television ad promoting it, now he's down to take the power. He's down to harness the power of the internet and the tools that he's been given to create his own business. So he's got a job. It's just a different perspective on it.
I was talking to some people that I work with back in Denver, and they're about my age, late 40s, early 50s. And my daughters are now 24 to 25, and they're working, and they got jobs, and they're out of the house. But some of my friends still have their kids at home, and I was talking to the one lady I work with, and she's like, "Oh, my daughter wants to be a social influencer." And I'm like, "Heck no, you got to go to college and get a job." But I go, "How much do you think they make?" And she's like, "I don't know, what, $100,000?" I'm like, "Oh, no." So I just pulled up, I think it was Luke Paul or one of the Paul kids.
Logan Paul.
Yeah. I just typed in his name in Google and said net worth, and it was like $3.5 million or some crazy number.
Yeah.
And she's like, what?
Those people are anomaly though. Like, I mean, he's done very well for himself over the years, but the people, there's a harsh reality for people who are getting into this game, especially now, trying to stand out, is that chances, and then this is not to dissuade anybody listening to it, but
they're not going to get dissuaded anyways.
Yeah, the chances are is that you've got to do something different. It's the Logan Pauls and the people like that. They come from back when the playing field was a little bit more open, and now every person has one.
I kind of look at, like I always tell people when they ask me about my podcast, I go, Joe Rogan is a multimillionaire because of his podcast, but he's been doing it for 10 years. And he was in the probably the second generation, but, and he had a name before, being a TV host and UFC host and all that. So he already had a built-in following.
Yeah, that definitely, I mean, apart from his podcast being very good, he's also a media personality and has been. I mean, I think next year is his 20th year commentating the UFC, Fear Factor, everything else that he was involved in. He's been very prolific, in the comedy scene as well for a long time. And so that obviously helps. And you can see it, I'm sure you've noticed that as well, even in the last year, the amount of people who are starting to start podcasts, celebrities and other people that. It's such a growing platform, but still is still relatively new in regards to, if you compare it to the amount of people who have Instagrams or the amount of people who have a YouTube channel or websites.
Well, it's not even close.
So it's, podcasting is still a very new medium and has a lot of opportunity, which is partly why we had a goal, I guess, towards the end of last year. So it took a little while to get started because we had a lot of other projects on. But one of the reasons why we were so eager to get into it is because we saw the opportunity to transition into a new form of media and I guess try something else out, because Instagram is becoming harder and harder to stand out, essentially, is probably the easiest way to say it. So we started our podcast with the goal of trying to create a new brand within sort of everything that we do. And we finally launched it about 4 weeks ago, and it's been good.
That's awesome.
We're looking forward to it. It's been fun.
It seems like the episodes are about an hour long, roughly.
Yeah, the first episode was 45, and we thought that that's where we'd be at. In the last couple of, kind of crept up to about an hour. We've got a sweet spot is probably around about 50, 55 minutes. We're still working out the format. We just released our 6th episode on Monday, so we released a couple to start off with, and then we're doing them every Monday. It's called So Bon Voyage. It's about, the idea came about that we wanted to cover travel stories that weren't just about all the good things that happened, but we wanted to sort of look at some of the funnier, more crazy, outrageous misadventures that happen around the world. So
not throwing points into an airplane engine. Not so funny.
So we do a segment at the start called What's in the Things That Are Happening in the News, and then we generally like to tell each other a story. The format we've done is that I research a story and Christine researches a story. We tell each other the story on the podcast live for the first time. So all of our reactions and our back and forth commentary is all fresh and unscripted, which is nice. I think it's a refreshing format for people to follow. And we've had some pretty funny ones. The one we just had on that just released was about some pretty crazy stories about these father and son hikers who got lost in Alaska for 5 days and how they eventually got out of it. And another hiker who broke his leg in Australia while hiking, and how a 3-hour hike took him 2 days, and what happens if you open the emergency door during a flight, and all kinds of crazy stories like that. So we do some research into some of the famous stories and also some of the more unknown stories and cover those. But it's been fun. We've had a lot of good responses, and podcast numbers are slowly growing. We're reaching more people around the world. We just picked over our 21st country, Puerto Rico.
Amazing.
So shout out to those guys.
Who are you with?
I just a shout out to Puerto Rico, our 21st country.
I got you. I just got Jamaica territory last night.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but I think that's the amazing part. For me, the podcast isn't my job. It's something I enjoy. It's growing, and I don't know exactly where it's going to end up because it's doing pretty well. But I can't imagine going back, like I said, I'm older. I'm 52. So I remember days without cell phones. So if you would have told me 30 years ago, hey, Pete, you're going to record a show on your cell phone, which is the remote phone, and you can put it onto your computer, and it's going to go out to the world, and you're going to be listened to in 50-plus countries, I would have told you you're crazy.
Yeah. It's just the opportunity. It's fantastic.
Crazy. Yeah. So even if nothing comes of it, you know, the people I've met, the people I've networked with, the people I've talked to, you know, never in a million years would I've ever would have thought I'd talk to like you. I mean, you're literally traveling around the world helping the environment, and I get to talk to you.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. We started the idea of our podcast about not having guests because we wanted to build the brand around us.
Yeah.
But, you know, we definitely are going to plan to maybe as the odd sort of special episode, try and reach out to people and talk to them personally because, yeah, what a great tool to be able to speak to. I mean, you've had some amazing guests on your show, and what a fun opportunity it is to connect with these people. And it's just, yeah, it's incredible.
And it's just, you know, like you said, it's another, you know, some people need to, I was always told some people want to hear it. Some people need to see it. Some people need to listen to it. Some people need to do it. So that, you know, as far as your content, you know, not everyone's on YouTube. So, you know, if your videos are very well produced.
Oh, thank you.
Very well produced. And that takes skill and that takes time and energy and effort, but not everyone goes on YouTube. So how do you reach the person that's not on YouTube? Maybe you write a book.
You got to keep going.
Yeah. So you do a podcast, and then, you know, some people are taking their podcast and transcribing it and turning it into books.
Yeah. Well, we've done, I tell you, over the last 6 years, we've pretty much done it all. We wrote a book. We wrote a Cuba travel guide a few years ago that sold really well across Amazon on digital and hard copy. We did a pilot for a TV show for the Travel Channel. Unfortunately, didn't get picked up, but it was good fun. Yep. We've got YouTube. We do photography. We've got the written blog. We're now on podcast. So it's all
you got it going.
It's all happening. Yeah.
That's awesome though, and you're getting married in a few days.
yeah, leaving for Mexico next week, and then getting married early November down in Sayulita. Got a lot of friends and family coming from Australia and from the US, so it's going to be an exciting week. We're down in Mexico for a month, so that'll be fun. I've got some plans to do a little bit of travel there and maybe record a couple of episodes of the podcast down there and do some filming and things like that while we're down there. But other than that, just enjoying the process and enjoying the wedding week.
What's your next location outside of after Mexico? Do you have one? How do you get that set up? It's a combination of things. It's what we feel like doing. Because we work online, we can take our work anywhere. Yeah.
Being in the US does lend itself to a lot more opportunity, just because most of our audience is based in the US. And there's a lot more opportunity for us to make more money in the US working with local clients or partners. So we do a lot of partnerships with brands and with companies for content creation and promotion. So whether it's working with, for instance, the video for the Lake Tahoe that we did, we actually made a series of videos that was in partnership with Travel Nevada. So we worked with them. We've worked with Visit California. We've worked with a few tourism boards, local and countrywide. And then brands as well. So
Trover, right?
Yeah, Trover's been a great partner. They've been a year-long partner with us this year. So they're a really great photo sharing app that focuses on travel. They have a lot of great experience, like different features such as a more specific GPS sort of geolocation. They also have lists and a lot of other great features. So they've been a really good partner this year. And so that sort of stuff is a lot more accessible, I guess, being in the US as opposed to when we're living in Bali. So it's all a bit of a sort of a mixture on that. Towards the end of the year, we like to be in the US because it's generally
holidays.
Yeah, the holidays
and weather.
Also, and the fourth quarter is usually when brands have a bit more flexibility with their budgets. The first quarter is usually a bit quieter as people are starting off the year and being a bit more budget conscious. So that's usually a good time for us to go to the other side of the world and hang out in Bali for 3 to 4 months, which we don't mind, which we're not complaining about too much. Yeah. So, and then just other things. I mean, one of the things that we love about our work is that it's so sporadic and it's so unpredictable. And I think that both Christine and I, being the sort of perpetual travelers and the restless people that we are, we really love that. Is that although at the moment we're really busy with work, but although we can have some quiet patches, we can have some quiet patches. We can just one morning wake up and open our email, and then suddenly somebody's invited us to go to Japan for 2 weeks on a work trip, and it's like, oh, cool.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, so that's what it keeps it interesting. So we've got a couple of places in the works that we're thinking about for next year. But yeah, I don't know. We've also, after being travellers for the last 10 years, even way before we started our travel blog, we were travelling and doing stuff. But after being travellers for the last 10 years, we have been enjoying a little bit more of a stationary base. So in the past, we were jumping around from country to country, week to week, 2 weeks to weeks. Now we've got more of a base. We use Bali as a base for a few months out of the year. We use San Francisco or around the Bay Area, sometimes Australia. So yeah, we do a little bit of setting ourselves up.
Being in the city or around the city, you could obviously do some redwood stuff. You came down to Cardiff, so you hit the San Diego area. You did your shooting up in Reno and Tahoe, which I appreciate because I lived in Lake Tahoe. I lived in State Line for a while.
Oh, it's a beautiful spot, yeah.
And then and I actually moved over to Alameda, and then I worked in the city.
Oh, okay.
Before my daughters were born, so. But I was an outside sales rep up there, so I used to travel all around the Bay Area, all the way from Sacramento to Fresno, Visalia. That whole thing.
California is it's a big state. It takes a long time to get around.
Yeah, I'll be in San Luis Obispo tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
That's a nice day trip of 260-mile drive,
Oof.
So.
Fun.
But, it could be worse. I could be in Nebraska,
Yeah, you're in California, which is a pretty good spot to be.
That's why all my other buddy reps, they're like, they're like, what are you doing right now? I go, well, right now I'm driving along the ocean, looking at it as I'm driving home. Right? I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, I hate you. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, nice.
Well, that's kind of like with your job. I'm sure you get a lot of envy from people, your friends. Oh, you're gonna go hang out in Bali for a few months. Oh, great.
Yeah. Well, now we're just telling them to stop complaining and to come and visit us. So
yeah, exactly.
That's been good over the last couple of years. We've had some good friends come and visit us in Bali while we've been there. Come over for 2 weeks. So that was nice. Last year we had a friend come out for a couple of weeks, and this year we had a couple of friends come out, which was nice. And yeah, it's all good fun.
Well,
but
that'd be interesting to do a podcast episode with people experiencing Bali for the first time.
Yeah, it would be.
As someone that's been there several times.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, especially with our podcast being about people's not so bon voyages, usually people who are less experienced traveling or at least traveling to a place for the first time, they usually always find themselves in the best stories because they're the ones who usually get either ripped off or lost or
exactly
things like that. So yeah,
that's literally how I started the podcast. I was giving advice to some of the younger reps. They would just call me because, we're always driving hours and hours. And they'd call me. They'd be like, hey, you got time to talk to me? Yeah. He goes, hey, I'm trying to schedule my trip. And so they would just ask me for advice of, how to book flights, how much in advance you need to book rooms and, different travel plans and all that stuff. And the guy goes, you should start a podcast. I'm like, what? What would I talk about? I'm like, he's like, business travel. I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
So here I am.
Yeah.
So,
hey.
It's great. I appreciate all the time that you gave me. And what's the best way for people to follow up with you guys?
Yeah, well, we've got a couple of different things going on. So our main travel website that we talked about today is called don'tforgettomove.com. And then all of our social handles are don't forget the number 2 move. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everything, YouTube. And then the podcast that we just launched in the last month is called Not So Bon Voyage. And then that's Not So Bon Voyage.com, and all the social handles are at Not So Bon Voyage. And yeah, listen to the podcast if you're looking for some crazy stories and some bit of fun. It's been good.
And it's actually very, at least the way I look at it, it's encouraging.
Yeah.
Because you guys could you imagine having a stay-home office job?
What's that, sorry?
Could you imagine having an office job that you had to go to every day?
Not now. No chance. No, I don't think I can ever go back to working for somebody, unfortunately. Yeah. I think this is it for us. So yeah, we'll just keep sort of evolving, and yeah, we're always well,
it's inspiring to others.
Yeah, I mean, it should be like and I don't mean that to toot our own horn, but like we've been inspired by a lot of people along the way.
Exactly.
And we've also helped a lot of people along the way as well. And this year alone, like I said, I told you we have the shiny object syndrome. One of the things I started this year was actually doing some small business coaching for people, so online business coaching. So I work with half a dozen clients when we're in Bali, helping people either get their online business started or helping them sort of move from small to medium. So trying to help them with anything from online marketing through social media, through course development, just through helping them build and structure their business and work on their business ideas. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. So, being a former teacher myself, I always like to sort of help people in the system.
And Christine was the same, right? She was an ex-teacher.
She worked not as a teacher. She did work in some nonprofits, but she also herself was doing some online coaching and things like that as well for people. Okay. So yeah, we're kind of always staying in the mix and trying to help, I guess, inspire people, whether it's through travel or through getting location independence or financial freedom where they can do something like what we're doing. So yeah, I mean, anybody who's listening can reach out to us.
I might have to hit you up for that somehow. That is quite kind of approaching off, but that is it's a big reach to go from, hey, I'm just talking to some people, because that's literally what I thought. I thought I'd just have this podcast I talk to the people I've known for years, and all of a sudden it's grown. And now people are like, what are you going to do with it? I'm like, I don't know. Because you don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's like something you should think about, because you're getting good guests, you're getting good conversations, and there's a lot of opportunity out there to grow it into something where it could become your full-time business, and you can travel when you want to travel. And I guess it's what makes you, what brings you joy and what you feel passionate about. And some people enjoy going to work, and we have friends like that. We have friends that enjoy working for a company, and so it's whatever really that you enjoy. But if you don't like your job and you want to do something else, now there's probably never been a better time in history and ever to make something of yourself, because the internet and online work has just given people so many opportunities and so many tools to be their own boss. And whether it was the mummy bloggers who started 10 years ago because they were, stay-at-home mums, and they decided, hey, I'm going to do something, and they kicked ass. Yeah. And they started crushing it with mum blogs, and, whether it was that or whether it was, the person who got involved with affiliate marketing or anything, social media management, and just anybody who was able to create something out of nothing, it's given people a lot of opportunity. So,
I've had a few eye-opening moments with this. My next door neighbor, who, seeing a 19-year-old kid move into, I live in Redondo Beach. It's not the most expensive area, but it's not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
To see a 19-year-old kid that doesn't have a job live in the same circumstances as me, because he's putting makeup on himself and selling his tutorials, is like, hold on a sec. As someone that grew up being told, get a job, work hard, and everything's going to work out, to seeing a kid that's staying at home, putting makeup on himself, making as much money as I am, like, what?
It must be a hard transition for people. I mean, you're in this, at least you're in the space where, you're doing the podcast and, you're meeting a lot of different people. But for a lot of people, perhaps older people in a different sort of generation, it is harder for them to understand, for me, that just seems like a natural thing. And I see, that is his job. You know what I mean? Exactly. But it's just harder to, and that we had the same thing. Like, people even still these days don't really understand what it means. It is getting easier. We do get less questions than we did, say, 2 years ago. But people do, because people sort of understand, like, oh, okay, you're on Instagram, you've got a lot of followers. Okay, you must just be able to make money. They don't really understand it, but they just understand that it's a thing. Whereas, say, even 2 years ago, people didn't even understand how it was a thing. They're like, I don't understand. Like, how do you make money? This was before the term influencer was around.
there's two things that, my cousin's wife runs a website with recipes.
Yep.
And I'm like, and she started this like 3 years ago. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. It's a little hobby, and she put out some recipes. I'm talking to her earlier in the year, and she told me how much she's making. I was like, what? The hell are you talking about?
Oh, people always got to eat.
I'm like, oh my God. But, how many recipe websites are there in the world?
Oh, probably thousands. Tens of thousands.
So, like how you said, you feel like everyone's like, oh, do you feel like you missed the boat on podcasting? I'm like, no. Did my cousin miss the boat on recipe website? Maybe she'd make more, but she's making as much as a school teacher now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, whoa, hold on a sec. So I tell people all the time, my phone doesn't know how old I am.
Yeah.
It doesn't know if I'm 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, or 80. So if I put out good content, whether it's my website, whether it's my YouTube page and all that, it is what it is. And if people go to it, then they go to it. If they don't, then I'm not doing a good job. But it doesn't matter if I'm 40, 30, 10,
No, everybody has an audience that they can sell to as well. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's just finding, and then we've generally found that our audiences usually stay within our age range, but that's because content and things that you enjoy are usually generational as well. So, we don't pretend that we're 22. we don't create content that probably 22-year-olds are enjoying at the moment. Hence, most of our followers and most of our subscribers and everything like that, our readers on our blog usually have grown with us as we've grown. So when we first started the blog 6 years ago, our demographic has shifted as we've got older.
That's interesting.
So, you generally kind of create the content that suits your current time of life. So, everybody's got an audience. You can be a 21-year-old solo backpacker, or you can be a 35-year-old married backpacking, traveling couple, or you can be the 60-year-old retired couple who are traveling. Like, everybody's got an audience, and if anything, the more you niche down to fit your direct audience, the more you're gonna stand out amongst the huge masses of travel blogs out there. Like, the more you niche down to a specific audience, the more you're gonna resonate with those people. And that's everything. That's not just a website. That's social media. That's every bit of content that you create. The more you niche down and try to address a direct need from a particular audience and demographic, the more you're going to connect and resonate and engage them.
Well, this is a little online course for free for all my listeners.
Yeah.
If you want more, make sure to reach out to Jules.
Yeah, go for it.
That was some good nuggets of wisdom right there, my friend.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So, wow. Okay. So I'll make sure to put all the contacts and links on my social media and on the website. So if anyone wants to get more from you, they'll just have to click a button.
Good. Yep. So fantastic.
Super appreciate the time.
Look forward to it. And, all right, Pete. Appreciate you taking the time to have a chat with me.
Congratulations and best wishes in the future for you.
Thanks, mate. Take it easy.
All right, buddy. Thanks, Jules.